can't find nothing on the radio.
You ready, Steve?
Welcome to Songology. He's Bruce,
He's Richard.
and this is another episode from our Song of the Day archives.
Enjoy.
Well, I guess I should say welcome back, Bruce. You've been on twice already today, but hey, we had to get through things. What's on tap for this week?
You just can't get rid of me today.
We try, but
Yeah, it's sort of like malaria, right? When your resistance gets down, I come back. Sort of like that.
uh
Well, having spent so much time in the South, it occurred to me that we have never really done very much with Elvis. And I thought about that because, of course, Elvis is from Tupelo, Mississippi,
yes,
which is not far from Muscle Shoals, Alabama.
right. And well,
And
you
so
even talked about the fellow who discovered Elvis.
Oh, yeah, indeed.
Well,
Yeah, because Sam Phillips was from Lawrence, I think. Can't remember which. I could look it up.
Hey,
If only there were an electronic device that I could use to look that up.
and this does show that I do pay attention to what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I'm impressed, thank you. So what better way than to start talking about Elvis than to talk about Princess Diana's favorite rock group,
Okay,
which was in fact Dire Straits.
really?
Yes. Now, why Dire Straits? Well, because on their last album, they released a kind of a fun little tune called Calling Elvis.
Uh-huh.
All right. Now, it was their last album. You will remember Dire Straits from particularly they were just huge in the 80s with the Brothers in Arms album. That thing was everywhere. And they were on a giant
Even I remember that, yes.
Yeah, well, and it was just everywhere for years, won all sorts of awards. They toured for a couple of years supporting it. Were really quite burned out. And so at the end of the Brothers in Arms process, Dire Straits essentially sort of ceased to exist. They just sort of faded away and nothing was heard from them for a number of years. Then later on, about in 1989, Mark Knopfler got together with John Illsley, the bass player from Dire Straits. They were having a dinner and a wine bar in Notting Hill, a suburb of London, and decided that they wanted to work together again. And so was formed the Notting Hillbillies, put out a record, and we'll have to do that. That was more of a country thing, or country-ish. But by 1991, Mark Knopfler and John Illsley got together again and basically brought back Dire Straits. At that stage, it was a four-piece band, Knopfler, Illsley, and two keyboardists, a guy by the name of Alan Clark and another guy by the name of Guy Fletcher. And Alan Clark says that really he thinks that more than anything, Mark put the band back together and wanted to do an album because he wanted to get out of the house. His life was in a bit of turmoil, his marriage was breaking down and so forth, and he wanted something to do. And so, because he's a musician, of course, he turns to music, right?
Right.
So that's where the album On Every Street sort of came from. And that was the last of the Dire Straits albums. They actually tapped our old friend Jeff Porcaro from Toto as drummer and invited him to, well, why don't you join the band? But Jeff was already committed to Toto and said no. And of course, when they released On Every Street, it wasn't nearly as popular, and everybody was comparing it to Brothers in Arms. Oh, it's not as good as Brothers in Arms, etc. Well, how can you be as big as one of the biggest selling albums of all time? No matter what you do after that, how are you going to...
You set the bar pretty high there, so...
No, exactly. And so, having released the album, they got a sort of a sideman, hired a drummer, and went on a 2-year tour, playing 300 shows over that period of time, supporting On Every Street. And one of the rock and roll writers said that when it was over, it made mountains of money and really, once and for all, drove Dire Straits right into the ground. The band was done.
Yeah.
They were finished. But while it lasted, they were quite the group. Actually, I can tell you that Dire Straits is 5th all time on the UK albums chart. They've spent over 1,100 weeks collectively on the UK albums chart. So, interesting thing, because you know how I love to dig up interesting and useless facts. The music video for our Calling Elvis features puppets, marionettes, and the Thunderbirds.
Really?
Yeah, the band itself, they are made into marionettes. There's representations of Mark Knopfler, John Illsley, and everybody. And it's actually the second time that a band has been made into marionettes by Jerry Anderson's outfit. Care to take a guess as to what the first one was?
The Beatles?
No, but close. The first band to be made into marionettes by Jerry Anderson was Cliff Richard and the Shadows.
Really?
And they actually appear in the feature film that was made in the early 60s called Thunderbirds Are Go.
Yeah.
Now, because of the Thunderbirds, that gets me all nostalgic, right? Because I thought the Thunderbirds were really cool when I was a little kid.
Yep.
So I thought, well, let me see. How many Thunderbirds can you remember?
Absolutely not.
Long pause for Richard.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me give you a hint. There were 5 of them, okay?
Yeah.
And they all had names
Yep.
of Mercury 7 astronauts. Their first names were all in common with the
The
original.
Mercury 7.
Right.
And I should be able to name them off the top of my head. And
An old space fan like you.
yeah.
Geez, I figured you'd get a
John
couple.
Glenn,
Anyway.
Scott Carpenter.
Okay, yes, and there's where too. John, in the Thunderbirds, the family was called the Tracys. John Tracy, he had the worst job of them all. John was in Thunderbird 5, and so he was in the orbiting space station that listened for rescue calls.
Ah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Scott Tracy was the pilot of Thunderbird 1, and I always thought that he was the coolest because he was always first out of the gate, and so he went and discovered what was needed.
Yeah.
And then called on the other Thunderbirds as necessary. So you got 3 more to go.
Well, you're going to have to go through them because they're not coming up to mind right now.
Thunderbird 2, the big green one, was piloted by Virgil Tracy, and that was the one that carried stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever they needed to wherever they were going. Thunderbird 3 was a reusable orbital rocket that flew up to Thunderbird 5 to give John a visit, maybe bring him some food.
Uh-huh.
And poor John got stuff. That was Alan Tracy that flew Thunderbird 3. And Thunderbird 4 was a kind of a school bus with fins shaped submarine.
Yes.
That was piloted by Gordon Tracy.
Gordon Cooper.
Yeah, there you go.
Shepard. What's Virgil's last name?
Grissom.
Virgil Grissom.
Gus Grissom.
Gus Grissom.
Well, he was known as Gus.
But it was Virgil. And
his name was Virgil.
Gus. Yeah.
There you go.
There you go, Gus the cat, my co-host here.
And so in the video, you get to see the old Thunderbird puppets.
Yeah.
And the Dire Straits puppets.
Well, we're going to have to put a link to that on our Facebook page.
Well, we'll see if we can't dig it up.
Yeah.
So I thought, hey, we'll do some Elvis things this week. And so what better way to start off than to start by calling Elvis?
And as usual, I have to stop it right there due to the wonderful world of fair use rules. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe. You can visit us on Facebook or head over to our website, songology.ca. Now, here's your chance to listen to the music or go on to the next episode.